Pregame.com.
Welcome back on pregame.com. I'm Pauly Howard. That's Teddy Covers. Let's start with the playoffs in college football. Semifinal number 1 at the Orange Bowl, Florida State and Oregon. Let's start with the Ducks. Great job by Mariota and the offense. The whole team, really. After the loss to Arizona, they kicked ass and took a lot of names. The long winning streak, thumping people, average margin of victory, 26 points per game, 500 yards in 7 of them, and blowing out Utah on the road, destroying Arizona in the Pac-12 title game. It was impressive, this 8-game winning streak.
You didn't even make fun of the way I look, man.
I'll get to it. I mean, I don't know what.
Look at this.
Shave.
Yeah, we don't get
this. What's the Santa hat a week later?
It's a Christmas break. You know, got to give the face a break for a little while. And I figure if I'm going to do that, you got to come in with a little, Christmas cheer in your wardrobe. But the funny thing about Oregon is, according to the national media, Oregon is Marcus Mariota. You ask anybody, any of the talking heads, I bet you they couldn't name one. I'll take an under 1 of the number of other players on Oregon that they can name.
Really?
Really? Nobody knows. Nobody knows
Marshall,
this team.
They couldn't give you Fisher on O-line?
No, I'm telling you, and let alone someone like Olawu, who's suspended for this game. A starting cornerback, one of Oregon's starting cornerbacks, and a guy who was absolutely a difference maker on the defensive side of the football. He's going to be drafted in the NFL. He's injured. I call him suspended. He's injured for this contest. He's not going to play. But you talk about Oregon away from home, and certainly the win against Arizona was very impressive. No question. But, they beat Washington State by 7. The defense allowed 31 in that game. They beat UCLA by 12. They gave up 30 in that contest.
Oh, come on.
They give up 41 to Cal. The Utah game you were just talking about, the blowout of Utah. Remember, Utah's about to go up 14-0. And your boy Clay drops the ball at the 1-inch line, 99-yard fumble return touchdown. Utah never got the momentum back. So I guess when it comes to Oregon, and look at the Pac-12 as a conference right now, all right? Here in bowl season, they're 3-0 straight up, right? Yeah, to Utah blowing out Colorado State. What happened with USC against Nebraska? Oh, they were a little bit overvalued. They won. Yeah. They didn't cover the inflated number. What happened with Arizona State against Duke? They won. They didn't cover the inflated number. Could that be a situation we might be finding here with Oregon? I mean, this number, is very, very high considering how well Florida State has played.
All right, let's look at Florida State. I'll tell you what, if they screw around and they come out and they spot Oregon in the lead, they could get run out. You're not playing NC State coming up, so this falling behind. It's been, it's incredible, 29 in a row, but you see all the close games. It started week 1 against Oklahoma State. Yeah. The team that won 6 games, they beat them by 6. The Clemson game, overtime. NC State down 17. They rallied to win. Down 21 to Louisville. The Notre Dame game. BC only won by 3. They tried to give Florida the game 6 times, and they wouldn't take it. And Winston was horrible in that game. He's regressed, by the way. They're 77th in total defense. But I think some of the sharps are going overboard here. Talk about your Tuesday group, and this is I think sharps would say, well, they're not that good. I wouldn't have them in the playoff. My power rankings and the squares just look and say, well, 29 in a row, defending champs, they got to be a top 14.
Yeah, and this is a classic example of kind of a sharp square divide in thinking. Your average Joe, your recreational player, is going to look at Florida and say, look, they've won all these games in a row. How can you bet against this team? I know they haven't won by margin, but they found a way to win. And think about the Oklahoma State game back in week 1 for Florida State. A real iffy decision on the goal line there when Winston was going in for the TD. Did he fumble? Did he get in? Touchdown. Ended up being the margin of victory. Against Notre Dame, offensive pass interference call, the flag.
Yep.
Otherwise Notre Dame wins that game, and Florida State's not in this contest. But you talked about the Tuesday group, and of course the Tuesday group is a legendary group of.
It's legendary.
Yeah, they've been around for like 3 decades. Yeah, it's a group of professional bettors that get together on Tuesdays during football season and go through every single game. And boy, we got in some vehement arguments about Florida State. Because the guys who are strictly numbers guys, and you talked about that 77th ranked defense, a team that couldn't beat anyone by margin, a team that's playing in what in theory is a relatively weak conference, although, you look so far, NC State played well in their bowl game, Virginia Tech played well in their bowl game, and Clemson a team that Florida State struggled with. They looked pretty good in their bowl game. And we talk about teams that look bad. Well, Miami was in the game. They couldn't make a play at the end to win it. BC had a blocked extra point cost them. So it wasn't like the ACC's getting wiped out, with the exception of North Carolina, and who didn't play well and didn't really have a good year. So from a point spread perspective, ACC's been every bit as good as the Pac-12 here in the postseason. But how good is the ACC power rating-wise, and how much do we penalize Florida State for finding ways to win but not blowing everyone out like they did a year ago? We're talking about a Florida State team. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
No, I agree with you. You're right. This is not the same team.
Yeah.
They can't stop anybody, and Winston's regressed. They're throwing a ton of picks, and they come out flat. Now, it's the most resilient team I've ever seen in the history of college sports.
Bingo.
But you can't fall behind against good teams, great teams, in the first half. If they do it, New Year's Day, they could lose by 4 touchdowns.
If they're down 24-10 at half, do you take Florida State at halftime?
No.
Really?
No.
Even given their track record? Not even maybe. You wouldn't even think about it.
I'm telling you, this team's no joke. Oregon will run you out.
I don't disagree.
And I'm very worried about the defense, too.
Sure, but the bottom line for Florida State, so we're getting this big argument in the Tuesday group, and the argument goes like this. Half the guys, more than half the guys, are saying, look, their stats stink, they don't win games, they haven't covered spread, this team's no good, they're a fraud. And we're talking about a team that covered 3-point spreads all year, consistently, cost everyone that bet them money. And even the 3-point spread covers, all 3 of them, they had to rally in the second half to get those point spread covers.
Well, I think you're going to put on you're adding another pool to your house because of in-game wagering on this team.
Well, that's just it. You're saying you wouldn't take them at halftime. Yeah. I'm like, of course you take them at halftime. Win or lose that bet. If Florida State's down a couple scores at half, I got to put something on Florida State because I've seen them do it. There is a will to win. And the talent level from Florida State hasn't declined markedly from where it was last year. Yeah, they lost some guys to the NFL. Coming into the season, Florida State had a bevy of NFL draft picks. And guess what? They still do. They have more than twice as many guys who are going to be taken in the NFL draft as Oregon has. So the talent level's still there. Just the margin of victory hasn't been there. Do I downgrade a team? Because I had a guy yelling at me in the Tuesday group, you got to downgrade that team 2 touchdowns from where they were last year, and standing up and vehement. No, you don't. I don't think you do. This is a Florida State team. They haven't lost. Again, the last time they lost was in 2012 at Florida, 37-26. That was with E.J. Manuel at quarterback. We're talking about a team that they haven't been a dog since week 4 at Clemson in 2011. Last time they were a dog of a touchdown or more, we're talking week 2. I think it was Fisher's second game as a coach. Week 2 at Oklahoma in 2010. Of course, they got blown out in that game. It wasn't pretty, but this is rarefied point spread air for the Seminoles. We have not seen this team in this spread range in a long, long time. And that's based on these concepts of, well, they're just not winning as pretty as they did last year. And in my mind, that's an overreaction. They're still winning. They haven't lost yet. I'm not convinced they're even going to lose this game, And I certainly would take Florida State in game if they fall behind early, because that's their MO. It's what they do. They are a team that digs down deep.
Let's make it official.
Sure, let's make it official and talk about the play for New Year's Day. Let's take Florida State plus 8.5. I'm not convinced that number is going to be there by kickoff. I think we will see some Seminoles money. So grab it now. Florida State plus the 8.5. That's the play right here from the pregame.com studios.
Nice job, Teddy. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch with these semifinals. And I'll tell you, when you see the total of 72, I think it's going to be a high-scoring game with Olumu out for Oregon. I think there'll be a lot of points scored in this one. We'll see you next time on pregame.com.